For this example, we're going to be writing a polynomial in standard form with the following roots. The roots are 2 and 4 plus I. I notice that we have a complex root because of the imaginary unit I. And therefore, we have another root here, its conjugate, which if you look at the reminder here, the complex conjugate, if you have a plus bi, then the conjugate would be a minus bi. So if I have 4 plus I would have 4 minus I as well. So first I'm going to write my polynomial in factored form, and then I could multiply that out and convert it to standard form. So to take a root like 2 and turn it to factored form, I would do x minus 2. To take this and turn it to a factor, I would have x minus, and then I would have 4 plus I. Notice I put the 4 plus I in parentheses because it had two terms. And lastly, to turn this to a factor, I would have x minus, and then again, put the 4 minus I in parentheses because there's two terms. Now I'm going to focus on these two factors, and I'm going to distribute this -1 that's in front of the parentheses. So the first factor is still x minus 2. So the second factor, I would have x, and if I distribute this -1 to the first term, -1 times 4 is -4, and then -1 times I is -I. Now looking at the second parenthesis, I have x, and if I distribute the -1 to both terms, -1 times 4 is -4, and -1 times -I is positive I. Now looking at still these last two factors, I'm going to be using parentheses. I'm going to be putting parentheses for a reason. I'm going to be using parentheses around the x minus 4s. When you do that and you continue to multiply both of these together, to multiply these, you would always start with this leftmost term and you would multiply it by both terms in the second parenthesis, and then you would multiply this term by both terms in the second parenthesis. When you do that, you're going to notice that there is a zero pair. When I multiply x minus 4 times I, and when I multiply -I times x minus 4, they're going to cancel out. So to save some work, all you have to do is multiply this first pair and then the last pair here. So x minus 4 times x minus 4 is x minus 4 to the second. And then -I times positive I is -I to the second. All right, so here is my factors, and continuing to simplify. I'm going to start with multiplying x minus 4 to the second power. And I'm actually going to do that on the side here, x minus 4 times x minus 4. So you're distributing the x to both terms, so x times x is x squared, x times -4 is -4x, and now I distribute the -4 to both terms. -4 times x is -4x, -4 times -4 is 16. I notice I can combine my middle terms here. -4 minus 4 more would be -8. So I have x squared minus 8x plus 16. All right. Then with that, I'm going to simplify -I squared. So taking a look at the reminder here, remember that I squared is -1. So if I have -1 times I squared, you could just put a -1 in front there. And if I plug in -1 for I squared, I would have the following polynomial: x squared minus 8x plus 16 minus 1, and I'm plugging in -1 for the I squared. All I did was substitute. So I have x squared minus 8x plus 16, double negatives make a positive 1. So x squared minus 8x plus 17. So that's what this is equal to, and don't forget, you're multiplying that with the x minus 2. So I'm going to write that in parentheses because it has three terms. So I have x minus 2 times x squared minus 8x plus 17. Okay. All right. So finally, I'm going to distribute this x to all three terms. So x times x squared is x to the third. X times -8x is -8x squared. X times 17 is 17x. Now I distribute the -2 to all three terms. -2 times x squared is -2x squared. -2 times -8x is positive 16x. And -2 times 17 is -34. All right, I know my polynomial has to be in standard form, so I have to go highest degree to lowest degree. So starting with x to the third, there is no other x to the thirds to combine, so there's just one x to the third. Now I look at my x squareds. I notice I have -8 minus 2 more, so that would be -10x squared. Combining my x's, I have 17x's plus 16, which would be 33x's. So plus 33x, and then minus 34. So this would be my final polynomial here written in standard form.